Most people think they can stay in their car during a traffic stop. They believe that as long as they haven't committed a serious crime, they have the right to remain seated. That's exactly what they think. But here's the problem. That belief can land you in handcuffs faster than you can say, "I know my rights." In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly when police can force you out of your vehicle, what happens if you refuse, and the one phrase that protects you without getting you arrested. Let's jump right in. The Supreme Court ruling that changed everything. Here's the truth most people don't know. Police can order you out of your vehicle during any lawful traffic stop. No additional reason needed. This comes from a 1977 Supreme Court case called Pennsylvania versus Mimms. Picture this. Philadelphia, 1970. Harry Mimms is driving with an expired license plate. Officers pull him over for what should be a simple ticket. One officer orders Mimms to step out of the car, not asks, orders. The moment he stands up, the officer notices a large bulge under his jacket. Pat-down reveals a loaded revolver. Mimms gets arrested for carrying a concealed weapon without a license. Mimms fights the case all the way to the Supreme Court. His argument seems reasonable. The traffic stop was for an expired plate. Nothing more. The officer had no right to order him out without justification. Everything that followed should be thrown out as an illegal search. The Supreme Court disagreed. In a decision that changed traffic stops forever, they ruled that once a traffic stop is lawful, the officer can order the driver out for any reason or no reason at all. The court based this on officer safety. They pointed to studies showing that approximately 30% of police shootings occurred when officers approached someone seated in a vehicle. The minor inconvenience to the driver was outweighed by the legitimate interest in officer safety. Here's the kicker. The officer doesn't need to see a weapon, doesn't need to suspect you're dangerous, doesn't need any individualized reason specific to you. That general concern for officer safety during any traffic stop gives them the automatic authority to order you out. 20 years later, in Maryland versus Wilson, the court went even further. They extended this authority to passengers. So now, police can order anyone in the vehicle to exit during a lawful traffic stop. Same reasoning, officer safety. Bottom line, if you're lawfully stopped for anything, a broken taillight, speeding, expired registration, the officer has the legal right to order you out of that vehicle, period. The critical difference, request versus order. This distinction can save you from an arrest. There's a massive legal difference between an officer asking you to step out and ordering you to step out. Most people never catch it. When an officer says, "Hey, would you mind stepping out of the car?" or "Can you step out so we can talk?" That's a request. A request is optional. You can politely decline. But when an officer says, "Step out of the vehicle," or "I need you to exit the car now," that's an order, a lawful command. Refusing a lawful order can get you arrested for obstruction. Here's the problem. Officers are trained to blur this line. They use soft language that sounds like a request, but functions as an order. "I'm going to need you to step out." Sounds polite, but is actually a command. So what do? Simple. You clarify. The moment an officer says anything about exiting, you ask one powerful question. "Officer, are you asking me or ordering me to step out?" That one sentence does three things. First, it forces the officer to be clear. If they're just fishing, they might back off. Second, if they confirm it's an order, you now know you must comply to avoid arrest. Third, you're creating a record on their body camera establishing that you understand the difference between voluntary and compelled actions. Let me give you the exact words. "Officer, just to be clear, are you asking me or are you ordering me to step out of the vehicle?" Stay calm, stay neutral, no attitude. If they say it's a request, you can say, "I'd prefer to remain in my vehicle." If they say it's an order, you comply immediately while stating, "I'm complying with your order." This establishes on camera that you're not willingly giving up your rights. You're following a lawful command under protest. Remember, clarity over confusion. Always. What happens if you refuse? Let's talk about what happens when someone refuses to get out. The consequences are immediate and severe. Picture this. You're pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer says, "I need you to step out of the vehicle." You've heard stories about rights, so you say, "No, I'm staying in my car." Here's what happens next. The officer repeats the order. You refuse again. The officer calls for backup. Within minutes, multiple patrol cars arrive. The situation has escalated from a broken taillight to what officers perceive as a potentially hostile encounter. The officer gives one final warning. If you don't exit now, you will be arrested. You still refuse. That's when they open the door by force, physically remove you, and place you in handcuffs. You're now under arrest for obstruction of justice, resisting a lawful order, or interference with law enforcement. In most states, this is a misdemeanor. In New Jersey, it's obstructing the administration of law, a disorderly person's offense. In Pennsylvania, it's resisting or interfering with an officer, a first-degree summary offense. The penalties vary, but typically include fines ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars, possible jail time up to a year, a criminal record, and legal fees. Here's the worst part. Once you're arrested, the officer now has legal grounds to search you and potentially your vehicle as part of the arrest process. The very thing you were trying to avoid, you just handed to them by refusing a lawful order. I've seen this happen. Guy gets pulled over for speeding. Officer orders him out. He refuses, citing the Fourth Amendment. Officer arrests him for obstruction. During the arrest, they search him and find marijuana in his pocket. Now he's got obstruction and possession charges. All because he didn't understand that once the traffic stop is lawful, the order to exit is also lawful. Your rights are important, but they don't include the right to refuse a lawful order to exit during a traffic stop. Save the fight for court. On the roadside, comply and protect yourself from additional charges. Bottom line, refusing to exit when ordered is giving the officer legal grounds to arrest you and search you. Don't do it. The exit order does not mean automatic search. Here's a massive misconception. People think that if the officer orders them out of the car, that automatically means the officer can search them and the vehicle. That's wrong. Dead wrong. Listen carefully. The authority to order you out under Pennsylvania versus Mimms is separate from the authority to search you or your car. These are two completely different legal standards. When the officer orders you out, that's based on general officer safety. It requires nothing beyond the lawful traffic stop. But to search your person, they need reasonable suspicion that you're armed and dangerous. To search your vehicle, they need probable cause, your consent, or another exception like plain view. Here's what this means. You're pulled over for speeding. The officer orders you out. You comply. The officer cannot automatically start patting you down just because you're out of the car. They need separate reasonable suspicion that you might be armed. Similarly, they can't start going through your glove box or trunk. They need probable cause or your consent. Here's where people mess up. The officer orders them out. They comply. Then the officer says, "You don't have anything illegal in the car, right? You mind if I take a quick look?" And the person says, "Sure, go ahead." You just waived your Fourth Amendment rights. The officer now has consent to search the entire vehicle, and consent cures almost all legal defects. Never consent to searches. Why? Because you don't know what's in your car. Maybe a passenger left something. Maybe something fell under the seat months ago. The moment they find it, you're responsible. Your protocol. Officer orders you out. You comply and say, "I'm complying with your order." Officer asks to search. You say clearly, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches of my person or my vehicle." That's it. If they search anyway, they'll need to justify it with probable cause. Remember, exit order does not equal search authority. Know the difference. The smart way to handle the order. Here's the exact protocol for handling an exit order the smart way. Step 1. Clarify whether it's a request or an order. Officer, are you asking me or ordering me to step out? If it's an order, move to Step 2. Step 2. Before you move, announce for the body camera, I'm complying with your order to exit the vehicle. My hands will remain visible at all times. Step 3. Keep hands visible on the steering wheel until you're ready to exit. Move slowly and deliberately. No sudden movements. Announce actions. I'm unbuckling my seatbelt now. Step 4. Once out, if the officer asks to search, clearly state, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Say it calmly and firmly. Step 5. If the officer asks questions like, "Where are you coming from?" you can say, "Officer, I'm exercising my right to remain silent." Step 6. If the stop drags on, ask, "Officer, am I free to leave or am I being detained?" This establishes whether the stop should have concluded. Step 7. Stay calm throughout. No matter how frustrated you are, stay calm. Be the calm one. Let them be aggressive on camera if they're going to be. That helps your case later. Here's what you need to remember. Police can legally order you out of your vehicle during any lawful traffic stop. This comes from Pennsylvania versus Mimms and Maryland versus Wilson. Refusing that order will get you arrested for obstruction, but the exit order does not give them automatic authority to search you or your car. Your power lies in clarity. Ask whether it's a request or an order. Comply with orders while clearly stating you're complying. Refuse consent to searches. Exercise your right to remain silent. Document everything. The fight happens in court, not on the roadside. On the roadside, you survive, you document, and you protect yourself. If you found this video valuable, hit that like button. Subscribe for more legal strategies that keep you safe and informed. Share this with your friends and family, because everyone needs to know this. This is for educational purposes only. Every case is different. Laws vary by jurisdiction. Consult a qualified attorney in your area for advice on your specific situation. Stay safe out there. And remember, knowing your rights only helps if you know how to use them correctly.